Once upon a time, there was a boy who lived in a small house with his younger sister, Emily, and their grandfather. They lived in the city. Their house was not big, but it was full of love. It was their home, and they were happy there. Every day, their grandfather took care of them. He cooked their meals, told them stories at night, and made sure they were safe. He loved them very much, and they loved him in return. Every morning, grandfather woke them up early. The boy and Emily would get out of bed and walk to the kitchen. Grandfather always had breakfast ready for them. They sat at the table, ate together, and talked. Grandfather would smile at them and say, "Eat well, grow strong." His voice was gentle and full of kindness. After breakfast, the boy and Emily would leave for school. Grandfather would stand at the door and wave goodbye to them. He watched them walk away until they were out of sight. This made the boy feel safe. He knew that grandfather was always there for them. At school, the boy and Emily dreamed of their futures. Emily wanted to be a doctor, and the boy wanted to be a pilot. They would talk about their dreams and plans while playing in the park after school. Sometimes they ran around the park, laughing and having fun. Other times they sat under a tree and talked about the future. They were full of hope, and everything seemed perfect. The boy felt that one day, his dream of being a pilot would come true. Emily was sure that she would be a doctor. Life was good, and they were happy. But one morning, everything changed. The boy woke up early, just like every other day, but something was different. The house was very quiet. It was too quiet. Usually, the smell of breakfast filled the air, but today, there was no smell of food. The boy felt something was wrong. He got out of bed and went to the kitchen, but it was empty. The stove was cold, and there was no breakfast. His heart began to race. He felt worried. He ran to grandfather's room and opened the door. Grandfather was lying in bed. He wasn't asleep, but he wasn't moving. His face was pale, and his hands looked weak. The boy called out, "Grandfather." His voice was small and full of fear. Grandfather slowly opened his eyes and tried to smile. "I am okay," he said softly. But the boy could see that grandfather wasn't okay. He looked tired and weak. His voice was soft, and the boy felt afraid. He didn't know what to do. Emily came into the room. She looked at their grandfather and then at the boy. Her eyes were big with worrying. She held the boy's hand. "What is wrong?" she asked. The boy didn't know how to explain it to her. He didn't want to scare her, but he was scared too. Grandfather was old. He was sick. He needed help, but they were just children. The boy didn't know what to do. He quickly ran to the neighbor's house, knocking on the door. He didn't know who else to ask. The neighbor opened the door and saw the boy's face. She could tell that something was wrong. She followed him back to their house. When she saw grandfather, she immediately knew he needed a doctor. She took out her phone and called an ambulance. The doctors arrived quickly. They put grandfather on a stretcher and took him to the hospital. The boy and Emily stood in the doorway, watching as the ambulance drove away. Their hearts felt heavy. The house was empty now. It was too quiet. The boy sat down on the sofa, and Emily sat next to him. They didn't speak. They just sat there, waiting. The boy was worried about grandfather. He didn't know what would happen next. They had never been without grandfather before. Later, they went to the hospital. It was a big place, and it smelled like medicine. They sat in the waiting room, surrounded by strangers. Some people looked worried, others looked tired. The chairs were hard, and the lights were too bright. The boy held Emily's hand tightly. He didn't know how long they had to wait. After a while, a nurse came and told them to wait. "You can see your grandfather later," she said. The boy nodded, but he didn't feel better. He felt even more scared. He just wanted to see grandfather, to know that he was okay. But the boy tried to stay calm for Emily. He didn't want her to see how afraid he was. Finally, a doctor came and spoke to them. The doctor was kind and gentle. He sat down next to the boy and Emily. "Your grandfather is very sick," the doctor said softly. "He needs rest. Can we see him?" the boy asked. The doctor smiled a little. "Yes, but only for a short time." He stood up and led them down a long hallway. The boy's heart was beating fast. When they reached the room, the doctor opened the door. Grandfather was lying in bed. There was a tube in his arm, and his eyes were closed. The boy felt a lump in his throat. Grandfather didn't look like the strong man he knew. He looked so small and weak. Emily ran to his side and called out, "Grandfather." Grandfather opened his eyes slowly and smiled. "My little ones," he whispered. His voice was very soft, but the boy could hear the love in it. The boy sat next to Grandfather and said, "You scared us." Grandfather smiled weakly. "I'm okay," he said. "Just tired." He looked at them with love in his eyes. "You must be brave," he said softly. "Take care of each other," the boy nodded. He didn't want to think about life without Grandfather. But the boy knew that he had to be strong. They had to take care of each other. A nurse came into the room and said it was time for Grandfather to rest. Emily hugged Grandfather tightly. The boy held Grandfather's hand for a moment before they left. The walk home was quiet. The boy and Emily didn't speak. They both felt the weight of what was happening, but they didn't know what to say. The boy squeezed Emily's hand. "We'll be okay," he said. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure. When they got home, the house felt so empty. It was quiet, but not in a peaceful way. The boy sat at the table and tried to cook, but it wasn't the same without Grandfather. The eggs burned and the bread was too hard. Emily didn't say anything. She only took a small bite of the food. "It's not like Grandfather's," she said quietly. The boy knew she was right. Nothing felt the same. But they would have to find a way to keep going, even without Grandfather. The boy and Emily were both very worried after they left the hospital. The house felt empty without their grandfather. Every room seemed too quiet. The boy kept thinking about what had happened. His grandfather was sick, and he didn't know how to help. The boy had never seen his grandfather so weak before. Grandfather was always strong, always taking care of them. But now, it was the boy's turn to take care of his sister and their home. The next morning, the boy woke up early again. He went to the kitchen to try to make breakfast, but everything felt wrong. He was used to the smell of warm food made by Grandfather. But today, the stove was cold, and the boy didn't know how to make breakfast the way his grandfather did. The eggs burned, and the bread was too hard. Emily sat at the table, watching him. She didn't say anything. She only took a small bite of the food. It didn't taste like Grandfather's cooking. "It's not like Grandfather's," Emily said quietly. The boy looked at her, feeling sad. He knew she was right. Nothing felt the same without their grandfather. He missed Grandfather's smile, his stories, and the way he always made everything feel better. But they had to keep going. They couldn't stop. After breakfast, the boy and Emily walked to school. The streets were busy, but the boy didn't feel like he was part of the crowd. He felt alone, even though Emily was beside him. The school day felt long. The boy couldn't focus on anything the teacher said. All he could think about was their grandfather. Was he getting better? Would he come home soon? At lunch, Emily didn't eat much. She played with her food, but she didn't seem hungry. "I don't feel hungry," she said softly. The boy understood. He didn't feel hungry either. All he wanted was to be with their grandfather again, to hear his voice and feel safe. When school ended, the boy and Emily walked home. The sun was shining, but the boy felt cold inside. They reached the door to their house, but the boy didn't want to go inside. It didn't feel like home without their grandfather. But Emily was tired, so they went inside anyway. The house was still empty, just as it had been the day before. The boy tried to smile at Emily. "Let's do our homework," he said, but neither of them felt like studying. They both wanted to forget about the hospital, about how their grandfather was so weak. That evening, the phone rang. The boy quickly ran to pick it up. It was the hospital. A nurse on the other end told him that grandfather was stable. He was getting a little better, but he still needed to stay in the hospital for a while. The boy felt a small relief when he heard that. He was glad grandfather wasn't getting worse. But he also wished grandfather could come home. He wanted everything to be normal again. "Can we visit him?" the boy asked the nurse. "Yes," she replied. "You can visit him tomorrow." The boy hung up the phone and told Emily the news. They both felt a little better. but they were still scared. They didn't know how much longer grandfather would be in the hospital. They didn't know if he would be okay. The boy felt afraid. He didn't know what to do next. The next day, the boy and Emily went back to the hospital. They waited in the same waiting room as before. The chairs were still hard, and the lights were still bright. The boy felt nervous as he looked at the clock on the wall. He wanted to see grandfather, but he was also afraid of what he would find. When the doctor finally came, he smiled at the boy and Emily. "Your grandfather is resting," the doctor said. "He is very weak, but he's getting better," the boy nodded. He was glad to hear that, but he still felt worried. He wanted to see grandfather for himself. The doctor led them down the hallway to grandfather's room. When they opened the door, the boy felt his heart tighten. Grandfather was lying in bed, with a tube in his arm. His eyes were closed, and he looked so small and frail. The boy had never seen him like this before. It was hard to see the man who had always been so strong and healthy now lying in bed, so weak. Emily ran to grandfather's side and said, "Grandfather." He slowly opened his eyes and tried to smile. "My little ones," he whispered. His voice was soft and tired, but it was still filled with love. The boy sat next to grandfather's bed. "You scared us," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Grandfather smiled weakly. "I'm okay," he said. "Just tired." He looked at them with kind eyes. "You must be brave," he said softly. "Take care of each other." The boy felt a lump in his throat. He didn't want to think about life without grandfather. But he knew that he had to be strong now. They had to take care of each other. The nurse came into the room and said it was time for grandfather to rest. Emily hugged him tightly. The boy held grandfather's hand for a moment before they left. The walk home was quiet. The boy and Emily didn't speak. They both felt sad, but they also knew they had to be strong for each other. When they got home, the boy felt the weight of everything on his shoulders. He had to be strong for Emily, but it wasn't easy. The next morning, the boy woke up early. He knew he had to do something to help. He couldn't just wait for things to get better. He had to find a way to help take care of Emily and grandfather. He didn't know what he could do, but he knew he had to try. The next day, after school, the boy sat at the table with Emily. He looked at her and knew that something had to change. They couldn't just wait for things to get better. They had to do something. The boy thought about their grandfather, who was still in the hospital. He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. Emily was still so young, and he felt responsible for her. He knew he had to be strong for her, but he also needed to be strong for himself. "I will find a job," the boy decided quietly. Emily looked at him, her face filled with worrying. "But you're just a boy," she said. "Who will give you a job?" The boy didn't have an answer, but he was determined to try. He couldn't just sit around and wait. He had to do something. "I will find a way," he said. He wanted to make things better for both of them. He wanted to help Emily and take care of their home while grandfather was in the hospital. The boy went outside and started walking through the busy streets of the city. The shops were full of people, but he didn't feel like part of the crowd. He felt small and unsure of himself, but he kept walking. He walked past a bakery and saw the smell of fresh bread coming out of the door. He took a deep breath and walked inside. A man stood behind the counter, looking busy. "Excuse me," the boy said, his voice nervous. "Do you need help?" The man looked at him and frowned. "How old are you?" he asked. 12, the boy replied. The man shook his head. "You're too young," he said. "I can't give you a job." The boy's heart sank. He felt disappointed, but he didn't give up. He said thank you and walked out of the bakery. He knew he had to keep trying. He didn't have time to feel sorry for himself. He walked to another shop, a small grocery store. A woman was putting vegetables on a shelf. The boy gathered his courage and walked up to her. "Excuse me," he said. "Do you need help?" The woman looked at him for a moment and then sighed. "I can't pay much," she said, "but you can help me clean." The boy's heart lifted. "I will do it," he said quickly. He was excited to finally find a job, even if it wasn't perfect. The woman handed him a broom and showed him what to do. He started sweeping the floor, feeling proud of himself. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He felt good knowing he was helping. When the boy finished cleaning, the woman gave him a few coins. "Good job," she said with a small smile. The boy smiled back, feeling proud. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was something. It was his first step toward taking care of himself and Emily. When he got home, Emily was waiting by the door. "Did you find a job?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Yes," the boy said with a smile. "It's not much, but it's a start." Emily hugged him tightly. The boy felt strong for the first time in a long while. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was doing something to help them both. The next day, the boy went back to the grocery store to work again. The woman showed him more things to do. He cleaned the shelves, carried boxes, and helped organize the store. His arms hurt from lifting the heavy boxes, but he didn't stop. He wanted to prove to himself that he could do it. At the end of the day, the woman gave him a few more coins. "You're a good worker," she said. "If you keep working hard, I'll give you more tasks." The boy felt proud. He knew he was getting better at his job. He was learning new things every day. He was becoming more responsible, and he could feel himself growing. He wasn't just a boy anymore. He was someone who could take care of himself and Emily. When the boy got home that evening, Emily looked at him with a big smile. "Are you very tired?" she asked softly. The boy nodded. "Yes, but it's okay," he said. "We will be fine." Emily looked at the small coins in his hand. "Can we buy food?" she asked. The boy smiled and nodded. "Yes, let's go to the market." They went together and bought fresh bread, milk, fruit, and a little cheese. It felt good to buy food with his own money. It made him feel proud and happy. For the first time, he felt like he was really helping. The next morning, the boy woke up early, just like before. He made breakfast for Emily. It wasn't perfect, but Emily ate it all. "It's better than before," she said with a grin. The boy laughed. "I'm learning," he said. After breakfast, they walked to school together. The boy felt different now. He didn't just feel like a boy anymore. He felt like someone who could make things better. At school, he tried to focus more. He knew he had to work hard to help Emily. He wanted to do well in school, but he also wanted to do well at his job. When school ended, the boy went straight to the grocery store again. The woman was waiting for him. "You're very responsible," she said. "If you keep working hard, I'll give you more tasks to do." The boy felt proud. "Thank you," he said. He was ready to do more. He was ready to work harder. Every day, he learned more about what it meant to be responsible. He wasn't just waiting for things to get better. He was doing something to make them better. That evening, after another long day of work, the boy went home. Emily was waiting for him. "Are you tired?" she asked softly. The boy nodded, but he smiled. "It's okay," he said. "We will be fine." The boy knew they still had many challenges ahead, but he also knew that they could face anything together. They were getting stronger. Every day, they were learning how to take care of themselves and each other. And soon, they would be able to take care of their grandfather when he came home. 1 week later, they received good news. The hospital called to say that grandfather was getting better. He would soon be able to come home. The boy and Emily were so happy. They had learned how to take care of themselves, but they still missed him. When he returned, grandfather was proud of them. "You have both grown up," he said. "I am proud of you." For the first time in a long while, the boy felt truly happy. Life was different now, but they had all grown stronger. They had faced difficult times, but they had learned that they could always find strength inside themselves. And together, they could face anything that came their way. Throughout the journey of the boy and his sister Emily, we saw how life can change in unexpected ways. They started with a simple, happy life, full of love and care from their grandfather. He was the heart of their family, always there to guide and protect them. But when grandfather became sick, their world suddenly felt uncertain. The boy was faced with the difficult challenge of taking care of Emily and their home. At first, he didn't know what to do. But as the story progressed, he made an important decision. He chose to take responsibility. He went out to find a job, even though he was just a boy. He worked hard, learned new skills, and began to understand the importance of self-reliance. Slowly, the boy grew stronger and more confident. He didn't wait for things to get better on their own. Instead, he took action and made things better for himself and his sister. Eventually, the boy's hard work paid off. He learned how to take care of Emily, buy food, and even help with their grandfather's recovery. When their grandfather came home from the hospital, he was proud of how much the children had grown. The boy had learned a powerful lesson. No matter how tough life gets, we can always find the strength to keep going. With determination, patience, and love, we can overcome challenges and grow stronger. This story teaches us the value of responsibility and hard work. It shows us that even when life gets difficult, we don't have to wait for others to help us. Instead, we can take charge of our lives, do our best, and make a difference. In our own lives, we might face tough situations, we might feel afraid, unsure, or alone. But just like the boy, we can choose to be strong. When we take responsibility for ourselves and those we love, we can turn challenges into opportunities for growth. We can face any obstacle if we stay patient and keep moving forward, step by step. Lesson learned. The lesson from this story is clear. Don't wait for things to change. Take action and work hard to make your situation better. Even when life is tough, find the strength to keep going. The more we take responsibility for our lives, the more we grow and learn. Question for the audience: what did the boy learn from his experience? A. He learned how to wait for help. B. He learned how to take responsibility and work hard. Please leave your answer in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to support us and keep getting more great content. We are working hard to create high-quality lessons, and your support is truly appreciated. If you would like to help us further, consider making a small donation. We're doing this for free to help you learn English, and your contribution will help us continue creating valuable content for you. Thank you.